Well, I don't know if you guys have noticed lately, but VW parts prices have gone through the roof. It's crazy. I'm going to kind of make sense out of that a little bit. And some of you guys might be thinking, well, I'll just wait for the parts prices to come back down. Guess what? It ain't happening anytime soon. I don't think we're ever going to see it in my lifetime. And, you guys are in the middle of restorations or buying projects. It's definitely going to affect the prices of those things. So this is my opinion. I think in the short term, restored cars are going to be worth a lot more than ones that are not restored in a short period of time. I don't know exactly when it's going to affect. A lot of people are going to realize that they're going to be into their project $40, $50, $60, $70,000, and because of the parts prices, and they're going to go, wait a minute, I can just buy this bus or bug done or whatever for a quarter of the price. Why would I buy that? Why would I do all that? Straight across the board, literally every price has gone up 30% minimum, even more, especially certain items that are imports from countries that we don't have, I don't know, Commonwealth countries that are going to Commonwealth, or we're not a Commonwealth country, so we don't get those discounts, if you know what I mean. Anyway, those sort of things. A couple of pieces of advice to get the best parts prices for your project is to find out who the source is who imports it and get it directly from them. A few options are, if you're looking for oval fenders and stuff like that, there's always guys like Lind who imports container loads of stuff. If you know how to find him, he's on Instagram. Maybe I'll put something on there. You can contact him. Like, he gets these fenders for really, really reasonable because he does a whole container, gets a bunch of them. Some of the early oval parts, some of the split bus parts. You can ask him what he has, and he'll sell them really reasonable. The BBT stuff, it's really nice quality. So if you go on Wolfsburg West website and you see that it's made by Wolfsburg West, it's going to be the best price. Go straight through them, or go through Eddie and Dave's garage. And or if you're in Orange County, he charges about the same price, and then you don't have to pay, go to Corona to pick it up if you're out there. It's just easier. Stops you from paying that horrendously high shipping cost right now, which that has gone crazy high. It's things like UPS employees going out and striking or threatening strikes and wanting more money. And guess what happens? The shipping price goes up. Just the consumer pays for it all. That's why FedEx is doing so much better than UPS right now. They've been laying off people like crazy. I got family that works for UPS. They've just been cutting the workforce like crazy and bringing in new young guys to work for half the price. So anyway, that's going to happen when you have that sort of thing. A lot of this, people think it's corporate greed, and it is somewhat. We'll talk about that later in the video. But really what it is something called cost push inflation. Most of your parts go through the great state of California. They're imported, gone through Long Beach, and distributed from California. And some are from Europe, okay, which also has a similar type of situation. But the wonderful state of California has this idea of making a living wage instead of a minimum wage. And every time they keep increasing that minimum wage, and people go, well, this has nothing to do with it. It's like, well, okay, it's called cost push inflation. You can look up this. This is a actual term, economic term. It's cost push inflation. When you increase the cost, when government gets involved and they increase the cost of something, either it's corporate taxes or they have wage increases, mandates like minimum wage increases, and it starts making everything go up in price because of that. That's from cost push. It's a cost that the company incurs, like labor, like rent, like all of these things we've seen go up quite a bit. Some of it stemmed from corporate greed. Some of it stemmed from government, okay? And all that increases, so it makes things go up in price. And yes, even minimum wage going up. So for instance, A guy at Wolfsburg West was a pretty good employee back years ago, and I'm not sure the exact numbers on this. This doesn't come from anyone. I've just got some information here and there. A guy who was making pretty good money 10 years ago was making 18 bucks an hour. And that was quite a bit, minimum wage was 10. And this was only in 2014 or so, 13 or 14 when this was happening. And they were making 18 bucks an hour start, and it was a pretty good job. You got paid pretty well. Minimum wage was $8, and then all of a sudden the government came in and went, whoa, this is not good. We need to raise minimum wage so that the minimum wage people can afford to, pay rent and everything else, when minimum wage was never designed for that. When I was younger, minimum wage was $3.35. There was no apartment, no place I could rent, no place I could go and live for $3.35 an hour. It was just impossible. And it was known. It was just the way it was. So what they've got this great idea to do is to raise the minimum wage up and up and up, okay, to make it a living wage. And what that does is that makes the cost of everything that requires that kind of labor go up in price. So all your food places go up in price. Used to be a good job to work at Stater Brothers, making $18 an hour as a checker. Now they make maybe 20, and they're just a couple bucks above minimum wage. So it's not a good job anymore. Same thing, Home Depot. When you worked at Home Depot back in the 90s, 2000s, it was 15 bucks an hour. That was damn good money. Okay, and you got benefits and everything. Now the same guy starts out between $17 and $19 an hour. So all this minimum wage increase has made wages worth less. In other words, when you go to buy something, it costs more because the price has gone up, because minimum wage went up, and everybody's paying for it. Now, because all the parts for Volkswagens go through this great state of California, you have all the big places, Wolfsburg West, ISP West, West Coast Metric. All the big places go, all the importers, IAP, they all get stuff directly from overseas, and it comes to Long Beach port and gets distributed from there to somewhere. So those labor cost increases are what's been pushing up the price of VW parts, along with corporate greed. So we'll talk about corporate greed again in a minute. I actually know how to make corporate greed go away. It's actually very simple. What a lot of people don't, they think that you should tax a corporation and make them pay more. And that's exactly the opposite of what needs to be done. When you raise corporate taxes, that's another cost push that happens to inflation. Inflation goes up because you've raised the cost to the corporation. What do? They just pass it on to the consumer. This is what they've been doing for years. We're going to make them pay. Nope, it doesn't. It makes the people pay. The people end up paying for all this corporate increase in cost. So if you're waiting for the parts prices to come down, it probably isn't going to happen unless you have a regime change in the state of California and you have a different government. You guys ever think that's going to happen? Comment below about that. So unfortunately, it's probably going to end up making things cost quite a bit more. And some companies have left. The parts distributors like J-Bugs, they just picked up and left to Arizona. They're out of here. Unless a lot of the other manufacturer or direct importers do the same thing, it's probably just going to go up. Unless for some reason we have this miraculous change of voting in California. Do you guys ever think that's going to happen? You can comment about that. So having everything go through the state of California is expensive. It goes through the state of California, labor cost is higher, it adds to the cost of things, and the other problem is limited supply. So we don't have a lot of competition in the Volkswagen business. And this is the only thing that beats corporate greed. Everybody goes, well, how do you stop corporate greed? You just raise their taxes. Well, that doesn't work, believe me. You raise their taxes, they just pass that on the consumer. If you raise their expenses in any way, they just pass out of the consumer. Give it to the government, right? So they're going to do the right thing with it and give it back to you? I don't think so. Come on. So here's the best way to beat corporate tax or corporate greed. It's called competition. Make corporations do so well that they have to compete with each other. exactly the opposite of what's been happening in the state, in the whole United States right now. They've got this government objective to raise taxes to those corporations and make them pay. Well, that just makes them smaller. When you make them get bigger, okay, and they have to compete against one another, and you have, let's say you had 5 or 6 people in the Volkswagen parts business doing the same piece, guess what? The price is going to go down in price because somebody's going to compete against them, because right now they're just entitled. Whatever they feel like listing it for, they just get it. And we have no choice but to pay it. So the government that creates an environment where corporations have to compete, who would be that? Comment below. Who would be that regime that would do that? Because it ain't the guys running the state of California. Nope, it ain't happening. Make them pay. Let's raise their taxes. Let's make them pay more. Let's make minimum wage higher so they have to pay people more. Who pays that, you guys? It's us. Us guys trying to restore our cars, pay more in price, in parts. We pay more in everything. And, we're expected to just pay this. Listen, if you want things to keep going this direction, just keep doing what you're doing. It's fine. And just don't expect parts prices to ever go down or be competitive in this stuff, because they're just going to go up in price. Well, some people go, well, that's great because now my car will be worth more. Yeah, but guess what? There's going to be more of these things that are going to go to the graveyard because guys can't afford to do it. This is what bugs me about all this stuff, you guys. Why do I talk about government and stuff like that? Because it affects these things right here, that thing right there. Saving these is going to be near impossible in the near future unless things change. Share your thoughts, guys. I'd like to see what you think about it. But honestly, I think we're looking at parts price going up exponentially, and there's no end to it. And what will happen is the completed cars are going to be probably worth a lot more, because trying to restore one is going to be near impossible. And people wonder, hey, Mike, aren't you going to do some more projects? Yeah, I'm going to do some more projects. I don't know. I'll figure out a way to do it. But I got to rethink everything. I'm either going to have to make every panel from scratch. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe we'll do a video series on that. Or I'll, have to do something way different than what I'm doing. Or, I don't know. It's just the financial challenge of building stuff like this is almost near impossible. When I get done with it, I gotta, if I sold it, trying to get my money back out of it, I'm going to have so much money in it, it's going to be hard to find a buyer to replace it. And I'm already having that problem, with some of these things, because, people's money is shrinking little by little. There's a percentage of the people. Some people are just doing okay. They're doing great right now because they've got to refinance their house. They got a really low rate. I don't have any worries about any of that stuff either, but there's guys that are doing that and they're making good money. They make, $250,000, $500,000 or more a year. Generally, they're not doing car restoration stuff or working on cars or anything like that. They just, travel and do stuff, whatever. I don't know. But they live a different lifestyle than you and me, maybe. But, there's people doing that. And then there's some people that have just gotten it on the other end of this. So there's the haves and the have-nots of this economy. And you have the people that just have, because they're in the right place at the right time, got the right job. They've got, the house refinanced down to zero, low expenses, or near zero. They got low expenses and they, have a good job that pays. So they can, live that life, but a lot of you guys can't. And I know that, so it's really frustrating for me because it's becoming, an issue for cars and for restorations, for cars, for buying projects, selling projects. Doing a full restoration is becoming near impossible with these numbers that we're getting. So, and I think that what's going to happen in the short range within the next year or two is your project prices are going to go down quite a bit in price, and your restored cars are going to go up in price. So And it's not happening right now, but I think in a couple of years, that's when it's going to take effect. And I think it's happening right now, but it's that adjustment period where people are just not ready, not ready to change. But anyway, that's what's happening in the parts business. It's basically everything shuffled through California, unfortunately, and because it's got a price to pay, and it's called labor. And people go, oh, well, that's good for the employees. That's good for them. Hey, guess what? You know what? The guy making minimum wage, they make $16 an hour. He still can't pay rent. Okay, guy making now $20, they can't pay rent because the guy making 16 is making more money. Okay, so it's pushed down the value of their wage. The people making $20, $25, $30 an hour are actually making less money because their money doesn't spend as much. They don't get as much for it because of inflation created by the cost push inflation. Corporate greed, the only way it can be solved is create competition. Who does that? Comment below. Tell me. What party? It ain't the one running California, just a little hint.